Guys, I'm going to give you a crisis management talk. If you're in the UK, if you're in the US, you must watch this, or at least the first phase. And please, 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 guys, share this with your mum, your nan, your gran, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, whoever needs to see it. Guys, this is a brief that I would give to hostile people working in hostile environments. And I'll come on to that in a little bit, guys. But if you've not done so already, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out when you do that. So, I've got a lot of experience, guys, operating in hostile environments, operating in places where there just is no rule of law. And one of the things that we would talk through with my staff would be a crisis management tool, because people will be operating away from me. I won't be able to talk to them. Sometimes they won't have communications back with me. So let's look at what's happening in the United Kingdom then. Let's look at what's happening on the streets. What we've seen in the United Kingdom, and there's some places in the United States, the police have lost control. It's gone, you know. We've seen mob rule. We've seen police running away from things. So there's an argument there to say that places in the United Kingdom and the United States at the moment are hostile environments. You know, as I previously alluded to, guys, I used to give this brief to embassy staff, to NGOs, to diplomats, to people operating in hostile environments. So I'm going to run through it real quick at the beginning for you guys who've not got much time, and then I'm going to go into each of these things in depth. So what we're going to work on, guys, is a emergency crisis tool called Hibernate, Relocate, Evacuate, and Evaluate. So if you find yourself in, for example, if you found yourself in one of these towns, a city that there's rioting, I mean, look at the incidents that have happened recently in the United Kingdom. We've had 2 sets of riots. We've had mass knife fights on the streets of somewhere in Essex. You know, so we're heading towards that direction. And, you know, we have lost faith in the police, have lost control. So, like I said, hibernate, relocate, evacuate, evaluate. So, hibernate, if you're in one of those situations, you need to go home. Go home, sit it out, make sure you've got provisions in your home to last you 3 days. I keep harping on about this. Water as a priority. We can all go a couple of days without food, but we can't go anywhere without water. The water, don't rely on your taps. Your taps may be turned off for whatever reason. Relocate. So once you've hibernate, you need to think about relocating if the trouble continues. Now, you need to move to a safer location. That could be your aunts, your uncles, another family member, somewhere you can go that's not right there in the hotspot. Then you need to think about evacuating. Now, evacuating could be you move into a hotel, you go somewhere to a different county. You could even leave the country at that point, guys. So that's hibernate, relocate, evacuate. And all these phases, you need to keep evaluating the situation, because these things may escalate, they may de-escalate. I don't know what the situation is going to be, but I can guarantee we've got more escalations on the streets in the United Kingdom, and certainly more in the United States. So I'm going to go more into this now, guys, and I'll put links into the to this in the description. So this would be a brief I would give to people working in foreign countries that are not stable countries. So I'm going to go and I'm going to give you this brief and then fit that into however you see that necessary in your own town, in your own areas. And please pay particular attention when I start talking about the triggers, because the triggers are kind of the most important thing. But I need to get the pretense done before we can understand the triggers. So, reacting to changes in threat context. Local and international aid organisations, so you guys, often work in regions where conflict threaten the human environment. So we've seen that in locations in the United Kingdom over the last, 3 incidents I can think of in the last week. This method of hibernate, relocate, evaluate, you know, we can stick to that, but I'll just give you the definition from one of my PowerPoints. Hibernation. During the crisis period, there is a temporary stop of programming. Staff stay at home or in some circumstances, they may be required to take shelter in an office or compound. So wherever you are, even if you're at work, you know, if you work wherever, and there's rioting outside, don't go out, stay where you are. People rarely come into buildings, although they do sometimes. You know, you're safer in that building than you are out on the street if people are rioting, if people are protesting. You don't know what intentions they've got. It's not safe there. Make sure you can phone up people at home. Tell them not to come looking for you. Make sure they know what's happening. Relocate. Then once we're looking at the the initial assessments being done, the rioting, the protesting, whatever it is, you need to think about relocating. So moving from point A to point B out of that initial danger area. You may still be in the danger area, but it's going to be safer than the place you're in. Equally, if it's a wider spread event, people may be relocating to your location. So don't think that you'll be always relocated out somewhere. You may have to host people coming in. And then evacuate. So in this instance, you say, right, we can't do this anymore. It's too dangerous. We need to get out of here. In the United Kingdom, in the United States, you're looking at moving towns, moving cities, moving states, moving counties, getting out of that region that is in conflict and moving to a more stable region. So then you've got the matrix. So you would hibernate as their escalation, then you would relocate. Is there continued deterioration of the environment? Then you would evacuate. You'd look at self-assessment, you would evaluate. You can either return back or you can continue extracting. These things, you need to evaluate, and you need to have a good set of triggers, which I'll come on to shortly. So triggers, guys. What do we mean by triggers? I don't mean, a trigger as in something that, makes somebody angry because somebody's used the wrong pronouns. What I mean by triggers is, okay, first of all, identify if you're in a risk area. Am I in a risk area? And this is a subjective opinion. I can't tell you guys what a risk area is without coming and actually looking at your individual circumstances, where you are, the demographics, the political situation, what resources you have in and around your area. So you're going to have to do that one yourself. First of all, you need to identify, So identify if you're in a threat area, yes or no, okay? Then you need to think, right, okay, what the trigger I'm talking about in this instance is, if certain things happen, I need to hibernate. Then we need to have further triggers to say, if further things happen, I need to relocate. And then we have triggers to say, if further things happen, we need to evacuate. And these triggers, we have to be rigid with these triggers. Doesn't matter if we say, right, okay, if we get one protest on our streets, we're going to hibernate. And again, the triggers could be such that a certain trigger could happen, and that could just trigger an evacuation. This happened in Ukraine with the NGOs. The NGOs didn't go to hibernate, they didn't go to relocate, they just went straight to evacuate. All the ones that were working in the east when the Russians invaded, because it was futile to hibernate, it was futile to relocate. They just needed to go straight away to evacuate. Now, I know these are extreme circumstances, but in the United Kingdom and the US at the moment, we're heading towards that. So it's important for both you and your family to understand, the context of these things. And you need to discuss these triggers with your family. And you need to go through that system, guys, okay? Hibernate. What are the triggers that would make us hibernate? And these are subjective, subjective metrics. You need to decide them yourself. So discuss with your family. Okay, what would trigger our family to hibernate? Okay, would it be X, Y, and Z? Where would we hibernate? And then you need to understand and then you need to communicate that between all your family. Make sure you communicate that with each other as well, because there's no point you deciding that the triggers have been met, then hibernating yourself, but not telling anyone, because nobody else may, other people may not know. The communications may be down. Loads of things could happen, and the main function of this crisis management tool is to protect you and your family. So that's the first thing you need to do, guys. Get good triggers in place. Triggers for hibernate, triggers for relocate, and obviously triggers for evacuation. Right, so I'll just read the points here that I would do on a presentation. Agree on triggers in advance, so all in-country staff, you and your family, and host government headquarters and donors will understand your decision and action plans. So we don't really need to worry about donors, or do we? I guess you could put donors would be your employer. Yeah, speak to your employer if it's necessary. If you're at that time, say, listen, you know, Fred, John, Harry, whoever your employer is, say, I live in a high-risk situation. I believe there may be trouble on our streets. If X, Y, and Z happens, me and my family, we're going to hibernate, okay? So I'm telling you this so it doesn't come as a shock or a surprise. And I think they'll be okay with that. You know, if it's, you know, if you've got solid reason for that, I don't think any employer will expect you to come out and fight your way through hordes of marauding zombies or whatever, you know, to come under your 6 hours in wherever you work or whatever you do. So yeah, it is actually a good one, that. Make sure you tell your employers that, because nobody wants this situation to happen and then you lose your job. Do not share triggers with particular actors. For example, it may not be appropriate to share information about relocation activities with actors in conflict zones in case it affects their decision or increases your vulnerability as a target. This comes down to operational security, okay? Do not go to the pub and tell everybody that, you know, hey guys, listen, you know, if it all kicks off, me and all our family, we're going to go and hibernate at my nan's house because she's got 10 days of water and a load of food hidden. Because guess what? Everybody's going to go there then. Equally, people who may be, and again, this is kind of heading towards NGOs who are a specific target, you know, they may become a target and they know the route they're going to go. So operational security, don't let everybody know what these triggers are. Yes, your immediate family, but you've got to keep it between yourselves. Like I said, these are subjective matters. Determine triggers when the situation is calm. Guys, I can't reiterate this one enough. If we see, which means now, if we see things start to happen on the streets and, you know, violence escalating in your local town, you won't be thinking straight, especially people who've never worked in this environment, who this is alien, excuse me, who this is excuse me again, who this is alien to. People will, what's the word? People flap, you know, people think out of context. So you need to put these triggers in place now. Not when things are escalating in your town and city, not when things are going wrong. You need to put them in place now. Otherwise, you know, you will be blinkered. You know, you'll be like a horse, you'll be blinkered and you'll not be seeing the bigger picture. If decisions are made during the height of a crisis, people's perception of risk may affect the decision-making process. So basically what I've just said there, guys, you know, if you make decisions in the height of a crisis, they're not always the best. So when we're talking about triggers, you need to have those triggers in place now. Communicate with all your family, because if something does happen, you will not make a good decision. You know, I've seen a good example. I've seen when I was in the military, I had a friend and he had to put his helmet on in a time of this is quite a funny one. Hang on, am I? Yeah, he had to put his helmet on, and guys, I don't know how he did it, but he managed to get his helmet on sideways, and the bit that comes down there is supposed to go under your chin. I don't know how he did it. He managed to pull it down over his face, and he shoved his face through it. So he was making a decision to put his helmet on in a time of heightened stress, and your brain doesn't work right. Understand how the relocation and evacuation of yourselves may be phased with different triggers applicable for different people. So take into consideration, you know, do you have a disabled family member? Do you have dogs? Do you have cats? Do you have elderly? You know, these people are going to need to be moved first. So they take priority, because it's a lot, you know, the cost of relocating them, the cost of evacuating them is a lot higher. By cost, I mean money, time and resources, and of course manpower, which you could put into resources. You know, so that's what you have to understand. Right, who goes first? Okay, my nan, because my nan's got a heart problem and she's got certain medication she needs to go. Okay, right, we need to put medication for my nan in all the locations just in case she doesn't have it. What if your nan or somebody with a medical problem has to be relocated and they're not at their home, and they're like, right, you know, phone them up now, right, you need to evacuate, it's all going wrong. You know, you're going to leave medication behind. You're going to leave vital resources potentially for people with medical issues. And also, guys, you know, pets. Pets is not something I would normally cover on this brief, but because we're talking about the United Kingdom, we have pets. You know, we love our pets. They're part of our family. You need to have an evacuation, you know, plan for your pet. Can you carry your pet? You know, do you have a big Malinois? Do you have like one of these little handbag dogs? You know, what is your pet? Is your pet a feral cat who never comes back to the house only once a week for some food and goes, meow, feed me? You know, you need to take this into consideration, because it's all well and good you evacuating and leaving, you know, I don't know, whiskers behind or whatever. So take these things into consideration, guys, okay? So roles and responsibilities. So again, when you've got your triggers, you know, you need to delegate roles and responsibilities to competent people, competent staff, or competent people in your family. You know, it's all well and good me expecting my daughter, if I say, you know, go relocate, it's all well and good me expecting her to be able to go into her bedroom, get all her stuff ready, do X, Y, and Z in short notice. It's just not going to happen. So what can we do? Okay, first of all, we can pre-pack that stuff and we can preempt it. So we should all have a go bag. We should all have, you know, emergency bug out kit if your triggers dictate it. But the reality is we need competent people to oversee this. Now, depending on how big your family or your organization is, again, this works in the workplace. Depending on how big your organization is, you know, is going to depend on these factors. And again, it's subjective, but you need to delegate roles and responsibilities for people. So people with experience to do that, people with appetite to do that, you know, it may be I get asked to do things and I just say, you know what, it's not something I want to do. You know, people may have the experience, but they may not want to do it. So find people who want to take these roles. Find people who are competent enough. You know, identify vulnerabilities. Identify seating plans for vehicles if you need to get out there, guys. You know, all these sort of things. And it's, you know, it's not the end of the list, but you know, you need to take into consideration people. You need to delegate people to do specific roles. Right, and then you need to understand, and at the end of it you need to say, right, okay, this is what we see, this is what the threat we see, but at any point, if you as an individual or group or family, remember we could be talking about a big organization, you know, as you as an individual, a group or a family decide on your own that you guys need to hibernate, you need to relocate, you need to evacuate. You know, you need to give people the tools and the capacity to do that, I guess, unilaterally. Guys, I'm going to leave it there, but please check the links in the description and share this video. This would be like the first part of a bigger heat brief I'd give, which would be hostile environment, no, HEAT, hostile environment awareness training. I should know, I've taught it enough. Yeah, but that's kind of the brief in a nutshell, guys. Remember, hibernate, relocate, evacuate, evaluate, evaluate, evaluate. Get yourself some triggers. Are you in risk? Do you live in a risk zone? Imagine if you lived in one of those locations that have just been, you know, that have just had seen absolute carnage on their streets. How would you react? How would you react in that situation? Could you go now and stay in your house, lock the doors and stay in your house for 3 days? Do you have the capacity to do that? Could you, in 30 seconds time, could you go to your house and grab one item and then be gone and not be able to and think, right, I've got sufficient means here and I don't need to come back for X amount of months. I don't need to come back at all. Guys, that's unfortunately the place that we are living now in the United Kingdom and the US. Guys, that is it. I did say I'm going to leave it there. Guys, let me know if you like this sort of stuff, because I can give these sort of briefs. I've got loads of PowerPoints on these briefs. I used to do it for a living. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure you share this to people who you think are vulnerable. Guys, I will speak to you guys soon. I'm going to mag to grid.